So tonight we're going to start with John. Actually, John Kelsey is going to show us the 4 steps to hybrid meeting. Not 12, there are only 4, and we'll see what he has. So John, it's all yours.
All right, I'm going to get a spotlight on me. Yeah, somebody's done that already, and I'm going to share screen.
Yeah, John, can I call out just one thing? And that is, I really appreciate you talking through the steps that you're doing for the meeting, because that's also helping people with the operational stages and some of the thought processes behind what you're doing for a hybrid meeting and for the Zoom environment. So I appreciate you kind of self-narrating there.
Well, I'm going to do that, and I'll continue to do that. I have learned some things recently about how Zoom behaves. What I think is going on with Zoom is not always the same as what you see. So there is a discrepancy there, and I'll talk to that as it comes around as well. Right now, though, I've shared screen, and I'm going to talk right now to the, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Can you see the share screen, full screen?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to talk about the 4 stages that clubs go through to build a hybrid meeting setup. Usually it happens all kind of jumbled together, but in looking back over the last 2 years, I really think I would have been a whole lot better off if somebody had given me these 4 stages to think about and approach one at a time. The 4 stages, it takes about 6 months or more, and it'll cost you anywhere from $300 to $3,000, depending on donated and repurposed gear. It helps to measure out the research and the expenditures by tackling these stages one at a time and not all mixed together. And yeah, we would know this because we've been there. The 4 stages are to, first of all, build a better demo by connecting one single camcorder to a big TV. Many clubs have already done this, and that's half of your hybrid meeting setup. And if a club that hasn't done this, it is much advised to go ahead and do it. Second stage is get a computer, get online and get on Zoom and connect your gear together. We've found that almost any computer works. I'll talk to that as I get to that. And then hold some Zoom meetings and learn how to use Zoom and learn how to use your gear with Zoom. And finally, you can connect your big TV and your demo setup to your Zoom setup, and you got a hybrid meeting. So in this discussion, I'm going to focus on building toward a basic and versatile all Zoom setup, stage by stage. There is a 5th stage where people say, okay, now we got this, we're going to add a lot of gear and do better. The situation, what you do can always be tailored and upgraded with better cameras, better microphones, and AV switching gear. That's really stage 5, but a club does not have to go there. With the basic hybrid meeting setup, the club is equipped to host business meetings. And here's Matt here addressing our recent business meeting. Show and tell, guest speakers, and multi-camera demos. You can connect attendees in the room and on Zoom so that everyone can see and be seen and hear and be heard. And here's a picture of the guys that are in the room at a recent meeting of ours. And here's a picture of the Zoom screen at a recent meeting. And finally, a good Zoom setup creates a good audio video recording that you can post for members to share. Okay, the first stage in this, everybody has seen the big TV camcorder combo at woodturning events and trade shows. It's an incredible enhancement to demos. Everybody can see without crowding around, and the camera can show angles and close-ups that you'd never get any other way, and many clubs already own this gear. So the basic deal is you connect the camcorder, put it on a tripod, and connect it to the TV and fool around until it works. And you're mostly going to have to deal with HDMI connections that might be a mismatch, for example, a mini on the camera and a full size on the screen. Canon and Sony and Panasonic camcorders are usually very good, refurbished and used. If you're setting up to this for the first time and your club already doesn't have a big TV, you want to buy the biggest one you can afford with the most robust audio that can fill your meeting space. That's a big help. You're going to need a tall stand on wheels, and in our case, we didn't want no tippy stand, so Barry built a very heavy cabinet that keeps that TV up there. You probably are going to need a tripod for the camcorder, and you're probably going to need an LED shop light with a frosted diffuser to hang over the lathe to provide some lighting. And you're going to need some extension cords. A club that only ever meets in person and goes no further than this will not regret investing in better demos. The tech challenges here are to connect the camera to the TV, HDMI is easy, and older gear probably needs adapters and dongles. And then move the camera around the lathe to find the views you like. Make or buy a tripod or a clamp mount to position the camera. We've often had a camera clamped to our safety screen using, there's a whole lot of stuff online that will help with that. So that's stage one, build better demos by getting a camera and a big TV. And as I say, as we know, most clubs have already done this and are well out on that limb. Okay, now we want to connect the gear to Zoom. Zoom on the host computer brings remote members into the meeting space and transmits the meeting back to them. Zoom has menus for switching among cameras and microphones, but first, all that gear needs to be connected to the host computer, and that can be quite a struggle sometimes. But we're going to start with the computer you already have, can buy used, borrow, or acquire by donation. Our club is using a $400 used Lenovo desktop. It works pretty good. I've seen other clubs using computers that are up to 10 years old. As long as they have USB ports and DisplayPort or HDMI out, you can make them work. Many camcorders have a wireless remote for controlling the lens. Each HDI camcorder also needs a USB capture card, and multiple cams might need more USB ports, so you need a port replicator. And you'll probably find yourself with a power strip and more extension cords. Smartphones make good video cameras. They can call into their own Zoom window, which makes them very flexible to use inside in a demo and in a meeting. And in this stage here of just getting your stuff connected to the computer, your tech challenges are going to be to acquire the computer and get online from your meeting space. That's not always easy. We are very lucky in Lancaster. We have a wired Ethernet, and Wi-Fi is good, and Wi-Fi hotspots are good. Some clubs are using antennas. You want to get yourself a free Zoom account. It limits you to 40-minute meetings, but if you work through its settings, you can learn how to use Zoom without ever having to buy a membership. And there are good tutorials available also on the Lucid site and on AAW. You get your cameras connected to the computer. You're going to have those USB capture cards. We found that gamer quality cards have very little latency and they work pretty well. El Cheapo cards, $25 cards, don't work that well. Generally 40, 50, 60 bucks is the right price for a card that's going to be any good. Zoom has 3 ways to switch cameras. You got to try them all and choose the method you're going to mostly use. Zoom also has microphone and speaker menus on the mute icon, and you have to work through those and learn how to activate the webcams that are the microphones that are inside your webcams and inside your camcorders. And finally, you want to be able to mirror that computer on the big TV. It's easy if it's got a DisplayPort or HDMI, but older gear probably will need special cables and adapters, and you probably will find yourselves in the Mac on the display preferences screen and on the PC on the display, also on the display preferences. At this stage, what you want to do is mirror the monitor on the computer on the big TV. You don't have to get any fancier than that. And generally, the defaults work better than any other settings you might try, but there are defaults for both monitors, both the computer monitor and for the big TV, and those are in the Zoom windows. Okay, Zoom meetings. Let me get the next picture here. Once you've got this gear, you can start to have Zoom meetings. The annual license from Zoom for up to 100 screens and unlimited calls is $150. You might need another used camcorder or a new USB webcam. We found that the Logitech Brio is very versatile and sharp, and it has lens zooming in software, plus a mic. And you'll probably need some camera mounts to just and point cameras around. So you're going to spend anywhere from nothing to a few $100s for new gear, plus the Zoom license. And many clubs have already made this investment to hold all Zoom meetings during the pandemic. Some small clubs can make hybrid meetings work with just this basic demo setup, the big TV and 1 or 2 cameras and a donated laptop. But here's what happens. There are 3 roles. Somebody has to moderate the meeting. The moderator's main task is not to talk, but to make sure that others get to talk, whether they're in the room or on Zoom. Somebody needs to manage the main or the only camera, pivot the camera, aim and zoom the lens to frame the activity in the room, whether it's business, show and tell, or a demo. And somebody needs to switch the cameras during the meeting and run the Zoom feed. Some of these roles can be combined. And those of you who are setting up and breaking down, somebody needs to be in charge of that and to make sure that all the gear arrives. I was at a meeting the other night where a crucial piece of gear didn't arrive. And the meeting president was sharp enough to know what to do about it, but it's difficult. And I've been in that spot myself. You get there and you think you have everything and you didn't have a checklist, and holy cow, you don't. Okay, next. Stage 4 is connecting it all together. And this is the setup I've been working on to make a demo video. Most clubs are using 3 cameras, something overhead looking down on the lathe. And as Dave Landers points out, a webcam is often good for that because you can zoom it in by just raising and lowering the height of it, and it'll connect on USB. The most versatile camera in the room is going to be the tailstock camera that looks at the tool rest and the work and can pivot to look at the room. And then something needs to see the demonstrator so he can talk directly into it and hold work up and hold tools up. In most setups, there's a 4th cam, which could be the laptop looking at the moderator, or it could be a phone cam looking at members in the room. Zoom can switch almost any combo of webcams, camcorders, and smartphones. The demonstrator needs to see the screen, and the simplest way we found to do that is with an iPad or another Wi-Fi tablet calling into the Zoom. You can use a smartphone in a pinch, but the screen's too small. The same tablet or the phone cam will bring the demonstrator's face into the Zoom call in its own window. As our friends in Susquehanna discovered, a speakerphone on the USB can pick up all the sound in meeting rooms like woodcraft classrooms and maker spaces. This speakerphone also can bring in the Zoom audio into the meeting room, and it maybe can do it better than the big TV. And most speakerphones can be daisy chained. If the room is too big and you need another, you can generally plug one right into the other, and their software will handle interference between them. So clubs that already have a big TV with a camcorder and already meet on Zoom can make this expansion for a few $100 more, depending on donations and repurposing. And at this stage of trying to get a 3-camera setup working with members on Zoom and members in the room, you are going to have audio problems, and that's the tech challenge. I think I ought to pause, Bruce. I don't know. I'm almost done. Okay, what happens next is stage 5. After people get it basically working, you got to tailor it to suit your situation. So you can cover all the situations that your club wants to have. Everyone can participate, whether they're on Zoom or in the room. Clubs can go a very long way with donated and repurposed gear, but once it's working, many clubs, hybrid clubs, continue tailoring the setup to suit the meeting and the meeting space and the membership needs, and to replace cantankerous gear. You can do it in stages, problem by problem, and it's always possible to drop back to a simpler setup that worked well enough. You'll get into connectivity issues, Wi-Fi hotspots. Somehow the meeting has to get on the internet. For noisy demos and demonstrators wearing face shields, wireless mics. For simple audio video switching, just push the buttons. People bring in an ATEM Mini or a Mini Pro. USB cams, however, are still going to switch on the Zoom menus. For software switching with digital control of everything, people use vMix, OBS, and Blackmagic software, and many demonstrators find that software switching works great for them. But for a club, additional software always adds complexity. Big clubs with a lot of members probably need a second big TV, and that will probably call for a powered HDMI splitter. And you'll probably sooner or later need a PA system to amplify the people in the room, and you'll have squealing feedback. And with all those mics, you're going to end up with an audio mixer. Okay, you can go to OBS bought robotic cameras, USB to HDMI converters, remote PTZ mounts, overhead booms, wireless HDMI extenders, Cream Decks, and Raspberry Pis. Maybe not. And members can make cabinetry to manage the gear. And for inspiration for that, look back to Dave Landers' video of the Rocky Mountain setup, Hybrid Meetings Forum #2. And I'm going to end the share of the images now and go back to the gallery view. Questions and comments?